what the heck is this in your feed? This is Shane from 40K Fanatics, and this is an emergency podcast.
Emergency broadcast.
Emergency broadcast. You're still going to get your regularly scheduled 40K Fanatics podcast at the normal times that you get it, whether you get it on Friday morning on the various podcast apps or Sunday morning on the YouTube. But this one is going to go out as soon as possible because we've had an emergency news dump having to do with the new or the possibly now upcoming Amazon Warhammer 40,000 TV shows, movies, et al. Now, I've brought in the homie Austin, who has he's had his heart broken a number of times by some things from Games Workshop, and also, is would you say you're a member of some fandoms?
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're back in the Planet of the Apes RPG Kickstarter.
Yeah.
You're an old world, old head.
Yeah.
You mess with the 40K because you must.
Yeah.
And there's been a statement. So if you guys don't know, Games Workshop and Amazon have agreed to a partnership where Amazon is going to have the exclusive rights to TV and movie media in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. And Henry Cavill, Mr. Superman, the only one. Hashtag bring back Snyderverse. Do it, Netflix. Just do it. But they tapped him to be the sort of director of this whole entire project because he is our favorite boy. And that was like 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And now we get a statement. I found this off an article that came out yesterday out of Gizmodo, and the statement is, quote, Games Workshop and Amazon are working together for a period of 12 months, ending in December 2024, that's this year, to agree to creative guidelines for the films and television series to be developed by Amazon. This is coming from an annual report, I believe, from Amazon. The agreement will only proceed if the creative guidelines are mutually agreed between Games Workshop and Amazon. We will update you accordingly. That's going out to shareholders, I do believe, of Amazon in this case.
Was that the Amazon or was that the Games Workshop? Because I know Games Workshop released one recently.
That could be Games Workshop. I will have to check the article itself. Stand by. We're doing it live. But what got us here is we wanted to talk about what this could mean, because I feel like if there was no smoke, then we wouldn't hear about this at all. It would just be kind of business as usual from all parties involved to their shareholders that we've got this, that, and the other going on.
Possibly.
But we're finding that 6 months in, there's still some discussion of creative direction. And I have got a couple of questions and a couple of points that I want to elaborate on. Use you, Austin, as a bit of a sounding board to see what you think.
I am your springboard.
Matters. And that was Games Workshop that released that.
That's what I thought.
All right. So, here's my question. First, we must work in this discussion off the assumption that something must be rotten in Edinburgh or wherever they come from.
Nottingham.
Yeah, Nottingham. Something's rotten in Nottingham or wherever Amazon's located these days. Now, my first question. Is it Rings of Power?
Are you talking about a Rings of Power situation?
Is it the show? Because season 2 of Rings of Power is coming out soon. Amazon's Lord of the Rings prequel series that they have the exclusive rights to for everything. Besides, there's some age of the Lord of the Rings mythos that they can't touch, and it's causing them some problems.
I feel like they were only allowed the appendix.
I'm not sure what they're allowed. Because what they've done is they've taken what they had, which is its own story, its own set of characters, its own societies, races, characterizations of people that then, show up in the Peter Jackson movies and have put their own spin on it. They've also spent $1 billion on this thing. Now, if I'm the Tolkien estate, say less, hand me the $1 billion, do whatever you want to do.
Especially with Christopher Tolkien dead.
Yeah. But my question is, what they've done in Rings of Power is they had a story to go off of that had not been made into the media of film. And they decided, we're going to do our own thing. And what they've come up with is kind of stupid.
I will say I haven't seen the show.
I have not seen the show, but I have enjoyed the commentary around the show and the analysis from people that are much deeper into Lord of the Rings lore than I. However, this also is a thing that's happening in the recently canceled Halo series, in Star Wars. It's been going on in Star Trek now for some time.
Oh, I can talk about that.
With the Picard show, with the new, is it Brave New World? Is the
Strange New World.
Strange New World is the total reboot. Meanwhile,
it's not a total reboot.
I mean, doesn't it have another, does it not have another Captain Kirk?
Well, that's someone else playing Captain Kirk.
Right.
It's a prequel. It's showing Captain Pike, who was the captain before Kirk.
Oh, okay.
He was already established.
I see. What I'm saying is, we've got a lot of, when these things come to film, there's a tendency for it to be rejigged. And that is being done better and worse. And in the Halo show, it was definitely worse. They concentrated very little on the Halo, on Master Chief. In fact, the final episode of Season 2 of Halo, again, I am told, and the people that I follow for this sort of information, they know their Halo. Season 2 ended finally seeing and getting to the Halo. And there will not be Season 3. There's speculation that Netflix might pick it up and do something. But, that would really be the definition of throwing good after bad. So, my point on this is, if you're going to change a story, it's my opinion that your new, different ideas had better be better than the already good ideas established.
Yeah, I agree with that. You don't want to fix what's broken. I mean, you don't want to. I get that. Yeah, you don't want to fix what's not broken.
That's right. And how many Black Library books are there? Hundreds.
There are hundreds. There's hundreds out of print as well.
Yeah. Recently, I just listened to a podcast the other day, the Tabletop Tactics guys that I love, and they were covering the third book of the Horus Heresy, the big one where Sanguinius is killed and the Emperor is put on his throne and all that. And they were talking about how sort of well put together that entire Horus Heresy, 50 some odd books worth, is about the characterizations of all these people. Mm-hmm. Like, they are fully fleshed out people that and that act and react like you'd expect them to. And so I could see Games Workshop being reticent to just say, yeah, do what Star Wars is doing and just make everybody your girl boss and go ahead and make a very diverse, via race and gender, collection of Primarchs for us to follow around. I don't see Games Workshop doing that because they are so actively, unlike the Tolkien situation, they are so actively currently writing their stories.
Yeah, Games Workshop is very protective of their IP, so much so that if people have noticed that for the past so many years or so, several years, the art styles actually changed over for the most part to actually depicting the model kits like bit per bit to be exactly as they're depicted. Like models, like units in the artwork look like the models. In the games, the environment and enemies look just like the models. They're trying to create one cohesive image of the world. and depiction.
Yes, and that kind of thinking by Games Workshop, which I think has got a like it. It's not just a fan service. It is a fan service on one hand. On the other, it's also a service to the whole incorporated idea, like the entire concept. Because one thing Game Workshop used to do, if you go look at some of the old video games, there are tons of them on the Steam store. The recent ones tend to be quite good and have what you're talking about, where everything looks like, when I first fired up the Demon Hunter game, or a Chaos Gate, that's it. And you get, it's an XCOM like thing, and you get in there and you see, oh, well, that big plasma coil is the one that I got in my Nocturne Kill Team box.
Exactly.
And that piece of that piece of girder is exactly the same kind of piece of girder that's on every little terrain piece. And then the Grey Knights are the Grey Knights all the way down to their little holsters and grenades and everything else. And it's just whatever you thought it looked like from the books is exactly what it looks like in the model kit, which is exactly what it looks like in the game. And whatever the story is in the books is exactly what they're talking about in the game, is exactly what they're talking about in the rules books, the codexes and things that the lore is a little bit secondary. And I could see them being, hey, we're doing okay. It would not necessarily behoove us to bring in a whole lot of people to watch these shows that would then have a whole different idea of what this is, because they seem to be interested in a Warhammer fan buying the models, playing the games, reading the books, watching the shows would be great, but not if then you had some giant leap to take to get to the models and the books and the whatnot.
Yeah, if things don't look right, and that could be something going on with Amazon, they might be trying to take the show in a certain direction that Games Workshop isn't comfortable with.
Brings me to another point. I mentioned Star Wars briefly. It is my opinion that there are a lot of our giant corporate conglomerate media companies have been lately storytelling by agenda.
Seems so.
It seems so. And look, you guys get on me a lot because I don't mind there being female Space Marines, or you get on me a lot because I'm like, where is the racial diversity in these guys? Like, how many porcelain white skinheads can we possibly have before it's a bit of a problem? Especially when they cannot handle any amount of what they deem heresy, and anything they say is heresy, okay? That is a road to, we got to get these different looking folks up out of here, okay? On one hand, I'd like to see a little bit more, red, yellow, black, and white. They're all precious in his sight. On the other, we go look at Star Wars. We look at the recent Acolyte, where it was they made the Jedi temple and the sort of the members of the Jedi Order in this show were like a workplace that only exists in a Hollywood writing room.
How so?
You know when diversity is like, okay, now that's too diverse. Like none of these people could ever have lunch over and over again without somebody being like, man, I don't know. Right? But that's what they were doing. It's, South Park said it. They're like, put a girl in it and make her gay and lame. And that's what these shows keep doing. That's what the Halo show did. Its B plot was a person of color just doing something, but she was special because she was chosen, and periodically she would be better than the trained soldiers all around her. That's what they did with Rey. That's what they've done recently with the Acolyte. That's what they did again, back to Star Wars with my God, how much did it jump the shark in the Obi-Wan show? You've seen that one.
I've seen that one.
Where an 8-year-old Leia is evading these alleged professional bounty hunters by running through the forest.
Exactly.
She is a child, a small child.
I still think that I agree with the theory. I don't know if it's been proved or not that was meant to be a movie with the amount of filler they have with the show.
Even if it was meant to be a movie, I mean, okay, you know what? Let's say it was meant to be a movie and the entire Leia thing was added on, like just attached wholesale to the side of it. I could see that, but then we're back to what I'm talking about, storytelling by agenda, because it's the exact same thing that Rings of Power has done, where they've just... You get a lot of Galadriel in Tolkien's writings, and then you get the show, and she doesn't make any sense if you have any of that background knowledge.
I think the thing with Rings of Power, I may be wrong about this, but I believe the only thing they have the rights to is the appendix. And that's like having the rights to doing a book adaptation, and you have the rights to the glossary.
But does that mean that does that mean that you then have to change the way that the character is? Because I feel that you can't say this is a connected thing and then disconnect it. Right? I understand that she couldn't go and do stuff that she is sort of listed to have done. But she could do other stuff and still be her. You see what I'm saying?
I see that, but also this show has no relation to the movies.
I think they are supposed to all be in the same universe.
No, I don't believe so.
I don't know about that. Let's set that one aside. Let's tackle Star Trek for a bit, because they've gone a totally different way with all of this, in that they just say, well, this is a different timeline, which I'm so tired of multiverse nonsense. On one hand. On the other, I wish Star Wars would just do it. We could eliminate those sequel movies, and they could stop, again, storytelling by agenda, trying to justify the quote, somehow Palpatine returned. Because that's what they even did in The Acolyte recently, which was set 100 years before the events of Episode 1. And Rogue One, 2 days before Episode 1. Now, let's set the storytelling by agenda aside. I think a lot of people feel that, or are beginning to really feel that. And you don't have to be you don't have to be racist or sexist to feel it. It is not by inclusion of these people of various gender or creed or race that it is obnoxious. It is obnoxious because they don't seem to be doing any other part of storytelling. It's just, here's a bunch of people, they're awesome, that's what we said.
I think it comes down to you're not allowed to present them in a negative light, have them have any flaws, really, because then that would be promoting perhaps stereotypes or negative connotations.
Well, then it's very hard to have to do like a sort of rising action and whatnot.
Well, that might be problematic.
Yeah, it would be hard for our characters to develop in any meaningful way. It would be hard for them to struggle in any kind of way and then overcome by virtue of effort or assistance or growth. Now, here's a question. And I'm just going to read you my notes. I've got a few notes here, verbatim. Does an alienating dip in quality matter to the broader audience? So let me unpack this one for you. Star Wars was excellent and is huge. There's been a dip in quality of storytelling that has, I believe we can all agree with that. If you talk to anyone, that seems to be the consensus on anyone that cares. If you alienate and turn off all those people that came in at the start, does it possess enough momentum, enough inertia to catch random people, because these people exist, that just sit there and clap like seals anytime something moves on a screen? They do not think about it. They don't have any interest in how one thing attaches to the other. They're just like, that was a really great show. I'm glad everyone had fun. Those people exist, and they are multitudinous. Okay?
I almost feel like it doesn't.
So I've got two parts to this, right? Because with Star Wars, just as a phrase is gonna attract some interest.
Mm-hmm.
What? There's a war in the stars? Let me have some of that. What is it? Doesn't matter. Oh, give me some more. That's what people tend to say. The people that care about it can be like, I am out on this nonsense. And it appears to not matter because just the outer shell of the thing, the shell of what it was, is enough to attract enough attention, especially at the scale that it is produced, that it is marketed, that it is made, to continue the thing, to just power the motor. Now, does it matter if you've alienated that initial core? Star Wars, we agree that it does not, because it's sort of too big to fail.
There's enough people to tune in just to be like, oh, Star Wars, I've seen some of the movies. I like Star Wars. I'm going to sit down and watch it, and they just consume it.
And there's an amount of just being in on the conversation, because I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of tired of watching the Star Wars shows because they're terribly written shows. However, I kind of feel like I want to mix it up with my Star Wars friends when we all get together and talk about the good old days, of the fall of Anakin and the redemption of Anakin.
Shane, are you doing some hate watching?
I have Star Wars is the only thing that I'm hate watching at this stage. There are some other things that I watch my various content creators that I appreciate, and they're doing some hate watching for me. But hearing them, suffer so I don't have to is nice. It's a good time. Now, the second part of my thing. Okay, let's go back. So Halo, for instance, totally screwed the pooch. It was a bridge too far. It was a poorly written show, and they've canceled the show. Now, do we think that matters to people that loved the games?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I think they gave the show a shot, saw that it was trash, stepped right off the train.
Mm-hmm.
I also don't know, because the show was trash, if there was anyone added to the tent. Because these things tend to be made they come to prominence in the medium that they are created. Lord of the Rings has a ton of fans, primarily because of the books. And then they were boosted again because the movies were unmitigated successes.
Absolute classics.
Absolute classics. Not sure how many people went and saw the first Lord of the Rings that had no interest whatsoever in the books. I feel like it was a lot of book readers going to see the movies. And then there've never been a happier bunch of book readers.
I think it was kind of the way that I think it's like book readers initiated it, and then it snowballed from there. Once the second film came out, you start getting the general audience.
Absolutely, and by the third one, it's just
everyone's seeing it.
Yeah, you're coming to see a class thing. So take Star Wars. It began as a movie, as a visual medium, and they have video games and they have books and they have comics and stuff, but it's really about the stuff you sit down and watch.
Yes.
Halo was a video game. Then they made a bad TV show. It doesn't appear to me that there's this groundswell of TV show Halo fans that have much interest at all in seeing any more of it. Now, I feel like the people that played the games that like Halo, they're going to buy the next Halo game, which, granted, there's another wrinkle to this, and this is why this is a discussion, and I hope you guys will get in the comments and discuss with us, because the last Halo game was not great. So now they're sort of alienating on two fronts, right? If you're out on Halo on the show and you thought, well, I'll go try Halo Infinite, and you got in there and it's just a live service sort of busy work type of game,
mm-hmm.
then you've got to be feeling real disenfranchised.
They can read the Halo books.
You could read the Halo books. I don't know how they are.
I don't know anything about Halo.
Me neither, to be honest. Now, we get to the nitty gritty because we are a Warhammer podcast. We say Star Wars, too big to mess up. Halo, jury's out. Did the show help? Did the show hurt? Did it matter at all? Are there enough Warhammer fans to make a difference either way?
I don't think so.
Well, but check this out. Let's say that Amazon had their way and they did a show. For whatever reason, the show had mass appeal and was successful. But it did not hold to anything hardly having to do with the established lore. That would certainly alienate all the people that are already on the boat, right?
Mm-hmm.
They would just jump ship from the show for sure. And depending on the amount of Games Workshop buy-in to the popularity, they would leave the thing entirely. So that would be like best case scenario for Games Workshop. They would say, you know what? We will sacrifice whoever we have now and gain millions upon millions of new people, and we'll just make models however those people would like them. We'll turn the thing on its head and do new books, and we'll do new model kits where they look like the people in the show, and we'll have a diverse cast of Primarchs, etc. Or what if they just made a bad or so-so show? Then what would happen?
I think it would definitely leave a scar on the face of Warhammer for especially the online community.
I agree. Because if you knew for sure that you could catch lightning in a bottle and just have this mammoth hit, then you say, I don't care what these tabletop gamers are talking about. That we are now just a media company. We're just selling rights to these characters and making movies and stuff. That's what we're doing.
That's what I was going to say is Games Workshop, if this went off well enough, they could just sell it all to Amazon and check out.
That's true. That's true. But if the show's not great, then we got a new thing to talk about. Because take the Twisted Metal series.
I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it either, but it's another one that I've kept up with a little bit. And it is by most accounts, a fine show. It has almost nothing to do with the video game. It's got very few characters, everything to do with the video game. At the end of season 1, they finally talked about, the clown in the ice cream truck, who was sort of the only thing that most people know about Twisted Metal.
I know.
Yeah. And my question is that, what is that helping? Does that hurt the Twisted Metal sort of IP? I think it's probably just another fine show.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say, at least in that case, if it doesn't do any harm, it's just kind of another layer on top of Twisted Metal.
Yep. So here's the thing about the Twisted Metal, though. I don't know how much you've kept up with it.
None.
There hasn't been one since the PlayStation 1. So when I talked at the beginning about how Warhammer is actively and currently writing their story for these things, Twisted Metal hasn't been touched, and there was, you could have wrote the plot on a napkin to begin with. So let's speculate about the Amazon 40K show. Let's say that it flies in the face of all the lore and things, and at the end of the day is a fine show that also, because we know how sensitive you people in my quote non-serious places on the internet can be, it alienates all of you guys, and all it is a fine show. What would happen to the hobby, to Games Workshop, to Warhammer 40K at large in that scenario?
Many people burning their armies, destroying everything, game shops closing down, total apocalypse. God help us.
I'm leaving silent so that we can clip that to put in a YouTube short. But I agree. That is what would happen. Because I don't think that Amazon is going to pay however much they've paid, and I don't even know if we know what they've paid, for the rights to make these shows, pump in all the money they're going to need to make these shows, stand Henry Cavill up there to say whatever it is that he's got to say to get anything done, because we saw how that went with The Witcher. He's like, hey, what if we just do any of this, anything like that hit series of books did?
Yeah.
And they said, nah, man, sell us this broken pen. And he said, I'll do what I can. If they do that, there's going to be required an amount of buy-in from Games Workshop.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Amazon's not just going to stand out there on an island while Games Workshop and all the fans who are the only fans established sit around and hate on the show. Because what if the show is not got the kind of mass appeal that would matter to anyone if not for the entryway of its original medium?
Mm-hmm.
I think it could be a total debacle.
I feel like the safest way for Games Workshop and Amazon to go about this is to not try to bite off more than they can chew story-wise. I think the way to go about this is to go as small scale as you can and tell a more grounded human story than having things like Primarchs flying through the air fighting and just you can't do the horse heresy. It's too much to really go after at this stage.
I disagree. My thinking is you go the other way.
Okay.
I think that you don't do horse heresy. Okay? You don't do that. First of all, it's supposed to be a Warhammer 40K show, so I think you speed off into the future, right? Years into the long war, way out in space somewhere, and you've got some space marines doing something. They're getting into something. There's an inquisitor. There's a mystery going on. There's a little bit of the people of the planet and things. Maybe there's orcs about because they're fun, and you spend a season working on that.
Well, that's similar to what I said,
but with space marines.
Well, that's what I meant. I meant something. Someone.
Well, see, I've heard people make this argument before, and they're like, "You can't have space marines. You can't actually do the space marines." Well, man, if you're going to do an Imperial Guardsman, just save your money.
I thought you were going to say Saving Private Ryan, but
no, just save your money, because what you would end up having is just your storytelling by agenda, and you would have your hero be who we know as fans of the thing to be just hopeless cannon fodder, right? And yet, this would be our hero going forward. At some point, he would meet some space marines, and we'd still be following Jim around. But of course, it wouldn't be Jim; it'd be whoever.
I think the Space Marine would work. You just have to make a charismatic Space Marine, because I know in the lore, Space Marines are kind of aloof when it comes to the wider humanity. I think trying to have someone that the audience can kind of like attach to would be important.
Yeah, I think they could make the Inquisitor and his retinue be that. I think that would be the move. The Rogue Trader game has got a nice angle on that, where every single game. I was talking to Casey about this last week after the pod, and I said it seems like all the games use the Inquisitor device to sort of exposition and direct and also get around the bureaucracy that is always harped on of the Imperium about how so many calls for help come in, and it's 1,000 years before any is answered, unless there's an Inquisitor around and he's like, hey, let's go.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to drive a story for the show would be following an Inquisitor and the retinue, because then you can kind of like flavor the group with what we could be like. Hey, well, we'll get the sister angle by having battle sister. We'll have we get our Space Marine flavor going on. We'll get guardsmen stuff go with the Stormtrooper or whatever. And
you could sort of make it where the various scenarios are not always what just some blue Space Marines are. They're not good at everything.
Yeah.
you know, you can't tell me that the Emperor's hammer is also its best mouthpiece. That doesn't seem to be their deal.
No.
By the time they show up, it's head knocking time, and that would be great. You could have the whole interpersonal debates and conflict of it's not always head knocking time.
Yeah.
And some in Space Marine Jim's growth in understanding that sometimes maybe he shouldn't just burn the planet. But anyway, what do you? I think that's all I got. Do you have any points that you'd like to make on this? Any thoughts? What do you think? There's any validity to the rumor that this is in trouble?
I don't know if it's really in trouble, or if they're just saying, "Hey, here's our situation currently. We'll probably get something figured out." But shareholders, I don't know if people are like making a mountain out of a molehill, or if this is just like an analytical, like, "Hey guys, shareholders, this is what we're doing. We got to get this ironed out by December, but we're probably going to do it." I don't know if it's a situation like that, or it's like all hands on deck. We have to get this figured out by December, or we're screwed.
So, I listen to a lot of sports business podcasts, and my favorite one is Nothing Personal with David Sampson. He was a guy that ran the Miami Marlins for some years as president, and he's been in the room for a lot of very serious money things, between player transactions and Major League Baseball goings on. And things that he is always stalwart about is that no statement is ever made that is not intentional, that is not for some purpose. For them to say that this has got to do with creative direction, they did not have to say that. They could have said production. They could have said they could have said casting. They could have said any number of things, but the fact that they put a year in they boxed a year in to mess with this. They could say it's a dispute of contract language, for instance. Anything. But what they put out, what the press has got, is creative direction, which says to me they want some pressure put on Amazon. They want Amazon to know. They want the streets to tell Amazon, us to tell Amazon, we would like our 40K that you deliver to us to be the same as the stuff that they are delivering to us. Which sounds like the most sensible thing in the world.
Yeah.
Until you look at the Warhammer Fantasy Pygmies.
Yeah. Well, not even that. I just mean Warhammer in general. Warhammer 40K, it's very steeped in a lot of problematic, to our societal point of view, imagery. You have a lot of hate, racism, xenophobia. You have a lot of religious oppression. And when you take characters and like, these are the good guys, these are our protagonists, and they're talking about kill the unclean, purge, all hail the God Emperor. It's like, are these our good guys?
Yeah, which of course that is the entire point. Like the problematic part of the whole 41st millennium is the point of it, right? The idea that this God Emperor and all this stuff is happening, like the macro state of things and its problems are the point of their existence, to shine a light on our own societal isms that we may have.
I feel like if you're jumping into 40K, you can like wrap your head and go, okay, yeah, this is what we're doing. We're doing this. When you're reading the book, you can go, these are my protagonists, but they're also doing a lot of things that are unkind to our feelings. But I feel like a general audience, and if people are just seeing like, oh, here's a new show from Amazon, they're seeing like a bunch of that stuff being put forth, they're going to start raising red flags and say, hey, Amazon, why'd you approve this like right-wing propaganda, basically, is what they would see it as.
Yeah, that could be.
Why are you funding this fascist show?
Yeah, separating the micro and the macro in 40K, I think, is difficult because Chaos and, I played my Chaos Space Marines today. And what they want to do is kill everybody home. What the Imperium wants to do is kill everybody home but us. Who's us? This very narrow band of us. But, and this is not nothing, just us is not quite everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, they have to be the good guys, I suppose. But you're right. That is not the kind of sentiment that plays very well in 2024. And then that brings up a good question. Is this thing at its peak and this is it, or what? Because society at large doesn't seem to be capable of enough nuance in its conception to have there be the micro of here's some stories about these warriors of their time. They can be heroes and villains to one another. And then the macro, which is this whole thing has gone to shit. Like, at what point would you and I and all of you out there listening, the tabletop gaming community, at what point do they start looking at us, not Amazon, and saying, why are you guys funding this fascist propaganda and whatnot?
I mean, there have been articles saying that kind of stuff. Like, look at all these racist 40K players. Look, you got people showing up at tournaments in like Nazi iconography and stuff. I mean, the accusations aren't exactly false for a subset of the gaming population.
Yeah, that's true.
The show could put the magnifying glass on some people.
Well, and the show should they ever get made, they're going to do that.
Yeah.
And so that becomes the question, and that is probably the question that is being asked and kicked around Games Workshop is the juice worth the squeeze?
Mm-hmm.
If we make a bad show that alienates our community, we'll have cut our nose off to spite our face. If we make a show that has mass appeal, we will possibly alienate our community because we'll have had to change course from the thing that they've come to love and study, and the thing that we're right now working on.
Yeah.
Like, if they had some desire to course correct the sort of macro issues with the 41st millennium, they should have been doing it all through the writing of the Horus Heresy books, which, I mean, how long has that been going on? I don't know when they started.
Since like 2006, maybe?
So 15 years of Horus Heresy?
Something like that. 10 years.
Of just really cranking out some, I mean, quality literature, let's be honest. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, Austin. I don't know if this is even cause for concern. I
will say, I don't think Amazon should be seen as the boogeyman in this, because they have put out good content. The new Fallout show that came out this year was excellent and stuck pretty on point to the source material.
What about Rings of Power?
Well, that's what I'm saying. You can't just look at Amazon as the boogeyman, because there's a lot of like give and take with them. Something I don't know, and this may be worth looking up, and I know we've got some commenters that are willing to do some research and write some articles, let's say. Was Fallout made by Amazon, or did they just sort of buy that show? I would like to know that, because to my understanding, Amazon, I mean, they produced and paid for Rings of Power. That's why it was $1 billion with a B, okay? $1 billion show for a season. Was Fallout a similar thing, or was that like a show that you go and buy that someone is already making or intending to make without much of their input? Because that would be an interesting thing to know. I know Bethesda worked with Amazon in making the show. They were real big on consulting Amazon, making sure everything in there was just like the game, making sure everything lined up. I mean, there is hate for some of the storyline progression is done for the Fallout timeline, but I think overall it's a excellent representation if you wanted to show someone this is what Fallout is, but you don't have to play the game.
Yeah, and you know what? Look, the internet exists to hate. That's what it's for. It is the 41st millennium already here among us. There are going to be people that are going to hate on it. There are going to be people that are going to cape up for whatever they do, no matter what. So, I don't in any way think that Amazon would be trying to avoid all negative discourse, because they're not, no matter what they do. But it is interesting what side of the road Games Workshop and Amazon end up on in their, because what they're doing is they've sort of got two paths, and one of the paths leads to unimaginable wealth.
Yeah.
And that's the one they'd like to be on, right? Is it the one that takes you and I out of the thing entirely, or do we stay the course?
I know Warhammer television is definitely not the way to go with it.
No, Warhammer TV is not the move. We've gone a long time. That was excellent. Me and Casey will be back with you on our normal time. Like always, I think we're going to talk about top 5 tips to make your gaming space, according to me and Casey, because we both now have a gaming space. Austin, you got a gaming space yet?
Nope.
Coming soon. We'll see you next time. I'm Shane. That's Austin. We have been 40K Fanatics. Check us out on X, on YouTube, and anywhere you get your podcasts.